But Ikusaba Asahi has always been a pathetic crybaby who relies on his elder sister whenever he is in trouble, and this made him so useless that even the Ice Sky gods didn't bother to bless him with an overpowered skill. Unlike most protagonists, he is an extremely unlucky guy with no special skill of his own, and the only thing he has going for him is his ability to attract older women, which isn't such a bad thing if you ask me. One day, Asahi pushes a little girl out of Truck Kun's way, and ends up his latest victim instead of the poor girl who may have been reincarnated as a vending machine. His spirit immediately leaves his body, and he can't help but wonder why he impulsively saved someone he didn't even know. He takes solace in the fact that his valiant efforts were not in vain, and his only regret is that he was unable to continue playing his favorite game. While wallowing in regret, a bright light suddenly appears to drag him into another world where he is teleported to the edge of a cliff. The first thing he notices are dragons and slime monsters all around him, and when he arrives at a town, he immediately concludes that he has been ice-skated into a fantasy world where magic is possible. He carelessly walks around town, which causes him to run into a guy who yells at him to watch where he is going. Despite the fact that the setting appears to be medieval Europe, Asahi notices that the townspeople speak the standard Japanese language. Although he can understand them, he stands out because of his clothes and how weirdly and excitedly he acts because he has been fortunate enough to be ice-skated, which is every otaku's dream. He takes his smartphone to a pawn shop owner, who after evaluating it, decides to buy it for 500 coins. Like any other weeb who gets reincarnated, he gets some light equipment that'll help prioritize his speed over defense, and this gives him the confidence that he can probably take on any monster. Hopefully, this won't turn out like Grimga. He immediately goes to the adventuring guild to register as an adventurer, and once inside, he meets a cute guild receptionist who stands out in her green uniform. She tries to explain how things work in the place, but he is completely distracted by her beauty and barely pays attention. He then registers by filling out a form, and the guild receptionist assists him in selecting an easy task in which he will have to hunt down E-rank rabbits. The enthusiasm he uses to walk out of the guild soon vanishes when he is faced with an angry blue wyvern on the first day of his adventuring. Just a roar from the beast is enough to send shivers down his spine, and without waiting for someone to tell him, he begins to run for his dear life. The beast fires a ball of flames at him, narrowly missing his ass, and then continues to fire several blasts at him while he tries to avoid them. He quickly checks his inventory, hoping that he will have a cheat skill like most Ice Sky protagonists, but he is disappointed to discover that he only has a stone throwing skill equipped. With no other option but to attack his pursuer, he tries out the stone throwing skill, which is unfortunately at the lowest level. When the beast eventually has him cornered, his life flashes before his eyes. Well, not exactly his life, but rather the face of his elder sister, Maya, who has always protected him so much that he developed a beautiful voice when his mates were growing balls of steel. He screams her name so loudly at the last moment before the attack that he somehow forcefully ice sky her from modern-day Japan to protect him. As soon as the beast sights her, it focuses its attack on her, but instead of becoming a newly prepared elder sister barbecue, she takes to the sky like a badass ninja. With the monster out of the picture, Maya begins to inspect every inch of Asahi's body to make sure he is indeed her cute little brother. It turns out she has a weird brother complex that rivals even Ghost from Black Clover. When asked how she got ice-skated, she explains that while he was in a coma in the real world, she heard him mumbling and smiling about another world, which led her to believe he was having fun. One night, the three orc brothers, a notorious gang known for their brutality towards humans as well as their thirst for blood, ravage a small village. They ensure that everyone is killed on sight, but this does not satisfy them because they believe it will be more pleasurable to search for humans hiding and hunt them down like animals. Just then, Asahi appears in front of them and announces his full name as well as the fact that he is a common adventurer. The orcs mock him, claiming that a shorty like him cannot possibly take them on alone, but he warns them not to attack him because they will surely regret it. His vibes and aura ooze off the typical overpowered Ice Sky protagonist, causing them to become enraged and move to attack him. In that instant, an earth magic attack is used to stab the first orc from below, lifting him into the sky before breaking down and causing him to crash to his death. Maya then appears from the sky in all her splendor and uses powerful explosive magic on the second orc before doing a superhero landing. She comes face to face with the leader of the bunch, and in the anger, she incinerates the orc so brutally that no trace of his remains is left to inspect. Asahi assumes she must be upset about all the villagers killed by the orcs. However, she explains that she was only upset because the orcs called her cute little brother a shorty. She spots an almost invisible scratch on his face, which makes her so worried that she brings out a powerful elixir to heal him. Asahi tells her that it is not necessary because he can simply spit on it, but this only gives her the bizarre idea of licking his face. After the battle, the villagers hail him as a hero despite doing nothing, and even at the guild, he is welcomed with a rank up from the bottom rabbit class all the way to the ogre class. He is also told that if it is discovered that his strength does not correspond to his rank, he will be put on trial, followed by a certain execution. When he hears this, he rushes outside and begs Maya to hide her strength so that he appears to be the strong one if anyone tries to investigate them, because her stats are so overpowered, they are practically off the charts. Later that day, they watch a parade in which the townspeople bid farewell to a group of adventurers. Asahi wonders who they are, prompting the pawn shop owner to explain to him that they are called Clan Bamunk and are the strongest group of adventurers in the kingdom. She further explains that the parade is a send-off for those who have been given the task of defeating the Demon King. Asahi brims with delight at the mention of a Demon King, which makes him surmise that defeating the guy might be a way of returning to their world. Maya immediately jumps on the idea of battling the Demon King, but then the pawn shop owner makes it crystal clear that they need to gain experience no matter how far they've ranked up. She explains that the leader of the group, called Siegfried, is a dragon class adventurer, one level below the highest rank, which is god class, and this gives Asahi the idea that he can easily catch up. He has probably forgotten he is a bottom tier fraud adventurer hiding in his sister's red shadow. Just then, a drunk man begins to berate Siegfried by calling him arrogant and cocky while destroying stuffs recklessly. When the owner of the establishment tries to calm him down, he lashes out with his axe. Despite missing the first swing, the villagers explain that he will not stop messing around now that all of the ogre class adventurers and higher have gone to defeat the demon lord. The pawn shop lady quickly announces that there is hope because Asahi was recently promoted to ogre class, which draws everyone's attention to him, prompting them to hail him and call him a genius capable of easily taking care of the drunk guy. The daughter of the stand owner also comes to beg him to save her dad, and it is at this moment Asahi knew he had he has less than a 0% chance of defeating the guy. The people's cheering draws the big-nosed guy's attention to the sibling duo, and he makes the mistake of calling Asahi a pipsqueak just as the orcs did. He then begins to mock the big-nosed guy by calling him a pathetic loser who should just go to his mom instead of lashing out because Siegfried outdid him. As expected, the guy takes the bait and moves to attack with his big axe, only to come to a halt when the ground splits open right in front of him. He warns him that the next attack will not split the ground but rather his head, and the threat causes him to swallow his pride and beg for mercy while fleeing shamelessly. Asahi automatically gains a fan base thanks to a great performance from him and his obsessed, overpowered sister. After a few weeks of intense training and adventuring, Asahi can now manage to defeat a slime without any assistance from Maya. On the other hand, Maya can easily incinerate the entire field of slime with a single attack because she's just too powerful. Speaking of powerful people, the so-called strongest adventuring party soon finds themselves faced with a general of the Demon King's army who destroys them while casually sitting on her throne. Siegfried, the last man standing, desperately fights to avenge his injured comrades only to be defeated by a minor attack. For his next quest, he somehow convinces Tanya to give him an easy task of picking mushrooms. He immediately heads out to pick the mushrooms, which are weirdly everywhere, but he soon notices there are no other adventurers in the vicinity. He decides to handle the situation himself with his special throwing skill, hoping to somehow awaken god-level powers, but he only ends up feeding the bear some mushrooms. Just then, a powerful blast hits the bear and sends even Asahi flying over a distance until he lands face first on some giant melons. He thinks it's Maya who has come to save him again as usual and begins to apologize for his uselessness. However, his savior turns out to be a total stranger with horns on her head. The girl sends him flying upwards and starts bullying the beasts with her purple flame-enhanced punches, one after the other, so fast that she finishes in time to catch Asahi. The leader of the bears, called the Guardian of the Claudia Forest, then shows up from beneath the ground shortly after to avenge his followers. The talking bear also reveals that the horned girl is notoriously known as Calmeria of corruption, and she has a habit of randomly fighting her fellow demons to test her strength. The vengeful bear builds up dense magical energy from the surroundings and uses it to blast his enemies to nothingness. However, the mighty flame is blocked by the girl's barrier because she decided to go on the defense to protect Asahi, who called her his big sister. She then returns the favor by taking to the sky and using a big ball of flames to wipe the poor bear from the face of the earth. Asahi then asks who she is, to which he responds that she is Culmeria of Corruption, one of the Demon King's 6 generals. Culmeria notices that Asahi is actually terrified at the unprecedented situation he has found himself in, and this prompts her to tell him that she'll never attack him because he is too weak. She then asks him if he knows an adventurer called Ikusaba Asahi, of whom she has heard tales of how he defeated the Orc brothers as well as a wyvern with one punch. She blabs on about how she'll be delighted to fight such a hero to the death, but as misfortune would have it, his ogre class badge falls down just when he tries to sneak away. Once she confirms the name on it, she prepares her flames while stating how wrong she is to have judged a book by its cover. A terrified Asahi tries to tell her that in his case, she'll surely get what she sees and soon begins running away from her. Culmeria doesn't even understand why he is running away, but she continues to follow him around while begging him to give a death match a chance. Maya then shows up at the right time to block Culmeria's path and reclaim her position as the Asahi's one and only Oniisan. She explains that she hurried over because she sensed that Asahi was in danger, and now that she has seen the enemy, it's clear that she wants to seduce Asahi with her revealing outfit. Culmeria is quick to defend herself by stating that she only wants to go one round with him, but Maya's mind is so dirty that she misinterprets what she meant by one round. The argument soon turns into a battle for Asahi's approval before quickly escalating into a serious battle that Asahi's eyes can't even keep up with. Culmeria quickly realizes she may lose the battle, so she unleashes her most powerful flare attack on Maya, who easily counters it with a wind spell she names Big Sister Cyclone. Now that she has been defeated, she begs Maya to finish her off like a true warrior. However, Asahi blocks Maya's path, which makes her think that he wants to deliver the finishing blow and gain the experience point. Asahi tells her that she's wrong and that Culmeria saved his life twice, so she definitely isn't a bad person. They eventually reach a compromise where they allow her to go back home and die from her injuries while they head back to the town to report to the guild. In town, Asahi finds out he has finally reached level 10 and is honestly satisfied because he knows how hard he worked to earn it. Maya, on the other hand, is dissatisfied because she always makes sure he gets a hit or two when she defeats a monster. This makes him conclude that he can only gain experience points by actually contributing to a battle rather than simply finishing off an already weakened enemy. He decides to check his skill list only to discover that he has gained a special skill called Escape. With this, he can instantly teleport a few distances out of a tight spot, which makes him glad that he can now avoid his brother-obsessed sister easily. But this only makes her more fired up than usual. When he tries to use the skill to escape again, he is shocked to discover that his MP runs out with just one use. Back at the guild, he gets the idea to form a party with people who are on the same level as him, thinking that it might even spice up his Ice-Sky adventure rather than sticking with his op sister who ends every fight even before it begins. He asks Tanya for advice, which prompts her to explain that a party has to be balanced like the one Siegfried leads, which has a defense guy, a magician, an archer who provides support, and lastly, the guy who steals the spotlight. He then asks if Siegfried managed to defeat the demon lord, to which she responds by calmly telling him that they all came running home after being defeated by a mysterious enemy. On his way home, he encounters some adventurers bullying a drunk they ran into in an alley. When they try to kill him, Asahi decides to intervene by hitting them with some pebbles from behind. They become extremely furious and turn their attention to him, only to be attacked from behind by the skilled drunkard, who takes down 2 of them in an instant. He then stops the last guy's sword strike with his bare hands before sending him flying with an uppercut. On a closer look, Asahi discovers that the drunk is the famous Siegfried, also known as the Dragon Hunter. He informs Asahi that he has fallen into depression after encountering a shameful defeat at the hands of a demon who him while sitting down. The guy soon begins to pin the blame on his parents, who gave him a hero's name that he tried to live up to, only to be roped into defeating the Demon King. Shortly after, Asahi heads back to the guild, hoping to apply for a party, but instead, he too gets roped into a wyvern subjugation quest. He tries to come up with an excuse to bring Maya along, but Tanya drags him into a wagon and ships him to his death. At the location, Asahi is faced with 3 giant wyverns ready to attack him at any given time, and while he thinks of the best possible way to escape escape his dire situation, Kilmeria shows up out of the blue and defeats them with her powerful flames. Asahi asks if she's carrying out another test of strength with the monsters, but she claims she only came to return the adventurer badge he left with her previously. While they converse, more wyverns show up, and this time, they are defeated by Maya's lightning attack. Her arrival prompts Kilmeria to ask for a rematch, which she totally ignores to focus on doting on her brother, who selfishly left her alone to fight a bunch of wyverns. She begs Maya for a rematch once more, but she bluntly refuses, stating that she has no reason to fight because all her resources are meant for Asahi's protection. This prompts her to hold Asahi hostage in hopes that it'll somehow annoy her into fighting her. However, she doesn't get the fight she wants, as they both end up bickering and pulling each other's hair like two sluts fighting for a rich client. While they are at it, a wyvern makes a terrible mistake by trying to abduct Asahi in secret, but Maya quickly catches up to them and electrocutes the beast while Kilmeria floats below ready to catch him. With Asahi in her possession, she attempts to force Maya to fight her again, but she is surprised when he teleports away using his new skill. She eventually gives up on the rematch but promises to return at another time when they least expect her. Sometime later, they take on a quest where they exorcise a ghost in a mansion, after which they cleaned the place and made it their new adventuring base. During a quest in a dungeon, Asahi activates a part of the wall that soon unleashes a rolling boulder towards them. Like the real pro adventurer that he is, Asahi quickly locates a route they can use to escape. However, his sister reminds him that he doesn't have to stress his brain by thinking when she can simply Hulk her way out of every situation. They soon encounter some undead knights along the way, and just as Maya prepares to send them to the great beyond, Asahi stops her by pinning her down. As usual, Maya thinks it's one of those moments where they'll kiss, but she is hugely disappointed because Asahi only held her to prevent her from firing a blast that would destroy the place and bury them alive. He then throws a piece of rock at them using his special skill, which makes the skeletons think he has become a pitcher, so they hit a home run that almost plucks his head off. Maya notices Asahi is once again useless, so she quickly steps in, using only her raw kicks to dismember the skeletons in a matter of seconds. Instead of the floor boss, they find some adorable baby bears on the lowest level of the dungeon who seem too cute to harm. They decide to leave them be and return to the surface, where Maya tries to make a move on him once again, thinking she might succeed. This time, Asahi fumes at her to knock off her weird character because he is extremely exhausted and hungry. On hearing this, she rushes into the forest to hunt for some meat. He decides to head to the village alone, and here, he encounters a supersized lady who begs him to accompany her around the place. He immediately senses something fishy, which makes him teleport away from her to give him ample time to prepare for her attack. She soon starts laughing while commending him for being able to sense her despite her disguise. She then reveals that she is indeed Kilmeria, although she is using perception magic to control how other people see her. They go on to explore various places in the town before eventually settling down in a pub where she gets insanely drunk. At the entrance to the mansion, Kilmeria suggests that they play a prank on Maya using her new looks. After some weeks of intense training, Asahi can now take on a lone wolf on his own. Although he is so proud of his accomplishment, if I were in his shoes, I'd probably have given up adventuring by now. He is soon confronted by an angry giant mother wolf 5 times his size, which makes Maya, who has been secretly watching him, take action and defeat the monster using a powerful earth magic that creates a giant hole in the ground. As usual, she brings out a powerful healing potion to heal a minor wound he sustained in the arm. Asahi knows she plans on using the opportunity to harass him, so he evades her and runs back to town with everything he has. While he tries to catch his breath at the gate, some rude adventurers who look like they'll die before the next arc yell at him to get out of their way. Afterward, he bumps into a very cute girl who begins to stare at him dreamily like some sort of hero just because he tried to help her up. She notices the injury on his arm and immediately casts a healing spell on it without being asked to. She introduces herself as Sophie Peaceful, a name that Asahi fancies a lot because he is so dumb that he doesn't think it's shady for someone to go by the name Peaceful. The soon-to-be-dead party calls her away from her Prince Charming as they head into the forest to explore a new dungeon that recently showed up. When Maya catches up with him, he tells her about Sophie, who healed his arm with a spell. Maya doesn't have the faintest clue about the basics of adventuring, which makes him explain the various classes available and what they mean. When he is done, the only thing she catches from his entire explanation is that healers are walking bottles of potions that are only better than regular potions because they are automated. Tanya announces at the guild that the rude party that recruited Sophie is the only one who has not returned from the dungeon. Over there, she too is almost eaten by a plant monster, but she's fortunate enough to be saved by her hero, Asahi. who slashes 2 vines from one monster while Maya does all the slaying as usual. She wakes up to find herself and her half-digested comrades outside the dungeon, and the only memory she has of the incident is Asahi sweeping her off her feet inside the dungeon. She ditches her party members and meets up with Asahi and Maya in a restaurant to express her profound gratitude to them. She begs him to let her join his party and save the world together like she has always dreamed of, so Asahi takes some seconds to think it through before deciding to let her join just because she's super cute. At first, Asahi thinks Maya might be opposed to having a cute girl join the party, but he's shocked to see that Sophie easily gained her approval just because she called him a hero. The rude adventuring group shows up shortly after to shamelessly pin their defeat on the cute and fragile healer. Even Asahi feels sorry for her as they all take turns insulting her, but then she reveals that there's nothing peaceful about her as she yells out that they are a low-budget cannon fodder party. She starts scolding them mercilessly while pointing out how inept they are compared to her new hero, who, on the other hand, has now discovered she is a troublemaker. The rude party decides not to let her words slide by beating the SHT out of the girl, who instead of apologizing, confidently pushes Asahi forward to take care of the weak-ass cannon fodder party. Just as the fight is about to commence, Maya quickly uses a bottle of powdered pepper as a smoke screen to defeat the cannon fodder party and make her escape with Asahi. She complains that she doesn't understand why Asahi dislikes the girl, so he makes her understand that she's a foul-mouthed landmine that'll bring nothing but trouble if they hang out with her. He then heads to the guild to take on a new quest, and as always, when Tanya tries to give him one that suits his level, he tells her that pro adventurers like to handle simple tasks that help them grow steadily. This makes her suggest a honey gathering quest, and Sophie volunteers to accompany him. At the forest, she actually does a good job by healing him when he's injured while he focuses on slaying the bees and protecting her. He even gets into the groove because he rarely gets the chance to protect someone thanks to his op sister who constantly pesters him. After defeating the first wave of bees, Sophie notes that his style of fighting is rather lackluster and that he must be stronger than that, which makes her wonder why he doesn't want to show his full strength. Asahi responds by telling her he doesn't want to harm the ecosystem by thoughtlessly killing monsters, and this ends up skyrocketing her admiration for him. She then excuses herself for a brief moment only to sprint back to his location with the queen bee and her workers chasing after her. She explains that it'll be more efficient if he can take out the queen bee and prove his strength. However, Asahi knows he'll surely die, so he joins her to run away. Just then, a giant boulder smashes the queen bee into the ground and somehow saves them in the nick of time. Sophie thinks it was Asahi's heroic powers that saved the day, and this makes her excitedly volunteer to take what they collected back to the guild while he takes his time to rest. Kilmeria and Maya show up shortly after to give him a gist of how epic and fun their battle was, making him realize the giant boulder must certainly be their handiwork. The next day, Asahi receives an emergency quest to stop the Demon King's army, who are destroying a small village in the forest. The leader of the group also happens to be an ugly Cyclops who serves one of the Demon King's 6 generals. Asahi notices some weak-looking monsters remaining and plans to use them to level up, but instead of running away, they start to perform a strange dance that soon hypnotizes him, making him profess love to Maya, who is more than happy to accept it. She pushes him to the ground, which makes him regain his senses, allowing him to stop her before she goes too far with the forbidden romance. Sorry, this isn't Boku no Pico. Asahi decides to quickly kill the monsters before they start dancing again, but Maya interferes by kicking him away while making the black stickmen carry on with their hypnotic dance. Every time Asahi snaps out of the hypnosis, Maya makes the black stickmen dance all through the night until Asahi finally asks her to marry him. For some reason, her imaginative wedding is officiated by Siegfried the drunk in a well-lit room filled with roses and a lot of cheers from the crowd. Unfortunately, her fantasy is cut short by the arrival of a giant Cyclops called Brondeth, who is also a servant of one of the Demon King's 6 generals. Asahi suddenly jumps in front of the enemy to protect Maya, who obviously doesn't need protecting. He quickly throws a rock at the Cyclops, but it doesn't even get to him, and when it throws a punch at him, Maya blocks it with her arm, tosses him up to the sky, and blasts him with her big sis flare magic. Some days later, Asahi encounters Tanya and her little brother in town. It turns out her little brother, called Roy, is a big fan of the ogre-class adventurer, and they use the opportunity to rope him into escorting them on a journey. Man begins to pray that a powerful monster doesn't show up because he'll be executed once they find out he's a fraud. En route to their destination, a wyvern appears above their carriage, destroying it completely, although he manages to pull them out in time. Asahi and Roy are crazy scared, but Tanya has so much confidence in the weak-ass fraud who isn't even confident in himself. He doesn't deal any damage at all, which which makes him proceed to do his iconic stone throw, which is usually a stupid idea. Surprisingly, the wyvern explodes internally while in the air and crashes down. They decide to walk back to town on foot since their wagon has been destroyed, while Maya secretly finishes off the wyvern that has begun to recover. They soon arrive at the location of a quest where they are to take down a clan of bandits called the Dark Crises. Some imposing men welcome them and immediately refer to Asahi as a young boy, which they soon regret because his two sisters don't let it slide and simply send them flying into the house. In an instant, they take care of every member of the clan until only the leader, who claims to be an ogre-class adventurer, is left standing. Asahi asks him why he wastes away his talent as a criminal, to which he responds that the guild hogs all the profit, and he is simply tired of being a dog who obeys the commands of people he can't even see. He first activates his lightning magic, which he sends around the room to intimidate them, and just when Asahi hopes to defeat the guy with Maya's help, Sophie shows up to complicate the issue by bringing spectators to watch his valiant exploits. This makes Maya and Calmeria step back as the gang leader attacks from above with his magic-infused sword. Asahi manages to evade the first attack, and before the guy can strike again, Maya shatters his sword by running her magic through it, thereby giving Asahi an opening to land the finishing blow. While Sophie acts like she expected nothing less from him, the villagers sing his praises after watching the battle firsthand. Asahi is then invited to the village he previously saved from the three orc brothers, where he is given a lavish meal as thanks for his valiant actions. Although Maya left him only to enjoy himself, this soon backfired because the villagers used the invitation to rope him into protecting them from another group of monsters. Before he has time to escape, the monsters show up in large numbers, led by a brother to the three orc brothers Maya previously defeated but from another mother. This one isn't only more ugly than his half-brothers, he is also stronger than them, as he easily sends Asahi flying when they cross blades with each other. Asahi struggles to stay unconscious as he watches helplessly while the monsters move to attack the defenseless villagers. A girl dressed in a maid outfit then shows up like a flash to clear the monsters in a blink of an eye. Another girl, who introduces herself as Gloria Brigandine, along with her maid Kuon, decides to assist him in the battle. She is able to withstand an exchange with the red orc before taking to the air and using a stylish move to defeat the orc. Once she is done, she immediately accuses Asahi of being a fraud who is as weak as a rabbit, and requests to duel him to confirm her claim. Before they can clash blades, Kuon pulls her away from the spot where a massive attack lands. This makes her assume that Asahi might be hiding his true strength, but the guy is the one who is even more clueless as to what has happened than her. She also notices that the attack somehow displaced her underwear, so she declares that they must have a proper match in an arena where everyone will be watching him closely. A few days later, at the arena where the fight is to take place, Asahi is shocked to discover that Gloria is a golem class adventurer, which is even higher than the ogre class, which he can't even live up to. He begins to panic in the waiting room, but Maya tells him not to worry as she'll surely back him up secretly when he is in a pinch. Before the match begins, Maya and Calmeria's plan to interfere by hiding in a perfect spot is ruined by Kuon, who senses what they are planning. Gloria begins the attack with a horizontal swing followed by a powerful downward strike, which Asahi successfully evades. He continues to evade all her attacks while waiting patiently for Maya's backup, which never comes. When Calmeria tries to intervene, Kuon also moves to stop her, and this only makes her so mad that she gives off a demonic aura that scares the SHT out of the maid. Maya quickly stops her before she incinerates Kuon and tells her to be chill because there's a slim chance that Asahi will win the battle. Meanwhile, Gloria continues to attack in succession while Asahi focuses on evading her as best he can. She then asks him to attack her instead of just dodging constantly, so Asahi tries to come up with a way to exploit her weakness. The next time she takes to the sky, Asahi uses his pathetic level 1 light magic to blind her eyes while he immediately closes the distance and makes her submit. She then asks him why he didn't attack her when he had the chance, to which he responds that he can't raise his sword against a girl. His Riz catches her off guard and she begins glowing bright red like a ripe tomato before looking for an excuse to exit the stage before she embarrasses herself. On their next quest, Asahi, Sophie, and Maya encounter a fork in the road that splits their path in two, and to save time, Sophie suggests that they split into two groups whereby she'll accompany Asahi while Maya goes the other way. Asahi knows all too well the kind of trouble Sophie brings with her, so he begs Maya to swap places with him. Maya then grabs Sophie along the left path, leaving Asahi to proceed along the right path without support. He soon encounters a goblin and draws out his sword to fight it. However, another one surprisingly shows up behind to ambush him, only to be fried by Calmeria's flames. She also defeats the goblin in front of him before getting down from the tree where she has been hiding for a while. Asahi asks her what she's doing doing in the forest, to which she responds that she's simply taking a stroll. Of course, he doesn't buy her lame excuse and surmises that Maya must have known she was stalking him, which is why she readily agreed to go with Sophie. Asahi hears a scream from deep within the forest, which makes him rush headfirst in haste until he arrives at a village where he finds some villagers who seem like they've been drained of their life force. He soon finds the culprit to be a bug-masked necromancer who is in the process of extracting the souls of the villagers. When he notices Asahi and his tiny sword, he controls some skeletons and makes them attack Asahi, who simply takes them down with ease. He then moves to attack him himself by extracting his soul, but Calmeria arrives in the nick of time to stop the process. The necromancer freaks out on seeing Calmeria of Corruption, who is his senior colleague in the Demon King's army. He then begs her to join forces with him to take over the capital, as she used to be so ruthless that even her allies feared her. Asahi quickly comes to her defense by revealing that Calmeria isn't that sort of person, which is actually half true and half ignorant of him, but who cares because he has managed to get her so riled up that she doesn't think twice before incinerating the necromancer. Once he is dead, the human souls he stole return to their owners and they regain consciousness shortly after. Back at the guild, news of the necromancer's defeat reaches everyone, and even Tanya begins to anticipate Asahi's promotion to goblin class in due time. The next day, Asahi goes over to Gloria's family house to help them load their belongings on a wagon per Kuon's request. After loading the items, they wait patiently for Gloria, who is being held back by several maids because she plans on leaving the estate and starting life on her own. When a man who appears to be the butler arrives, Asahi thinks to himself that he must be called Sebastian, and shortly after, Gloria actually addresses the old man as Sebastian. Gloria tries to get past him using her weapon, only to find out Sebastian is actually quite skilled at using his almost invisible steel wires to hold down her weapon. However, the girl brute forces herself out of his steel wires and flings him into the pool in the process. With him out of the way, the three of them leave the place in the wagon, and while they travel, Asahi thinks of how to help her since she's going to start from scratch as an independent woman. He is soon blown away when they arrive at a massive mansion that belongs to her family and where she plans on living alone. While they load the boxes into the mansion, Gloria starts having crazy ideas of living together with Asahi and also getting pregnant with more useless kids like Asahi. At the same time, Sebastian observes from afar alongside an embarrassingly dressed dragon-class adventurer called Tiga, whom he has hired to defeat Asahi, thinking that he's the reason for Gloria's sudden behavioral change. While they plan their next move, Meyer appears behind them with an overwhelming aura that makes them flee the place immediately. At the same time, Muscle Brain Gloria feeds Asahi several cups of tea, which makes his stomach bloated like an obese clown. Huon asks why she has been feeding him tea, which makes her explain that she doesn't know how to behave around guys and opted to feed him to kill time. Kun suggests that they form a clan together so that they can always be in contact, an idea that Asahi buys into, unaware that they plan to make him fall in love with Gloria. That same day, he meets up with Tanya during her lunch break to ask about the requirements to form a clan. While she discusses how advantageous and easy it would be for him, Sophie shows up and begs to also be included in their plans. She reveals that she has been secretly training to be of service to him and proudly shows him her status bar, which has shockingly developed more than his own. They then ask to see his amazing status, which makes him quickly come up with a cool line stating that strong people don't show off their strength. At home, he wonders who would be the best fit to recruit for his clan. The major problem he can think of is that more allies would only increase the chances of his true powers being discovered. Maya notices that he has something on his mind, which makes her encourage him by reminding him of all the awesome things he managed to accomplish despite his low stats. On their way out of the mansion one morning, Asahi and the gang find out the entire town has been flooded. As soon as he steps into the water, it transforms into a slimy-looking substance that sends him flying. As usual, Maya quickly comes to his aid even before he can scream for help. The slime seems to only focus on Asahi rather than the rest. However, in town, it's a different story, as many villagers, including Tanya, are almost drowning in the slimy stuff. On hearing that there might be a worthy enemy nearby, Maya and Calmeria quickly rush to locate the mastermind, while Asahi promises Tanya that he'll find Roy and take him to the shelter. He catches up to the op duo and makes them promise not to do anything outrageous as they usually do. However, they seem to have other plans because there's no way they'll pass up a rare chance to bully an enemy. Meanwhile, the mastermind lets loose a horde of monsters to attack the villagers, who are then protected by Siegfried's former party members who fell into depression after Calmeria turned them into her playthings. Although the trio combines forces and manages to defeat the weak monsters before destroying the portal they came through, the village continues to be encroached upon by slimes and monsters at the other end. Asahi finds Roy, who is protecting a girl who is injured and decides not to simply steal his spotlight. He decides to carry the girl while instructing Roy to focus on leading them through the fastest route to the guild. They soon encounter two slime dragons in the middle of the town, and before they are attacked, the big-nosed adventurer shows up to save their asses. Thankfully, he has sobered up and plans to earn as many experience points as possible by using the massive influx of monsters to his advantage. Siegfried also shows up to assist in the battle, but his efforts don't do much because the slime dragon simply respawns no matter how many times it is cut down. He explains that they must take out the core unless they'll tire themselves out fighting a pointless battle. He tells Asahi to quickly drop off the injured kid and search for the slime's core while he and the big nose guy take care of the slime dragon. They safely arrive at the cathedral where they watch as Sophie recklessly casts healing magic on every injured person she can find until she collapses out of exhaustion in Asahi's arms. His touch alone is enough to rejuvenate her, and she immediately continues to heal the wounded and even the leader of the cannon fodder party, whom she ditched because they were useless. Maya and Kilmeria finally locate the mastermind of the operation, who has been hiding at the top of a tower where she can easily observe everything going on in the town. She has a question mark tattoo on her face which tells us that she's a confused cosplayer who Kilmeria recognizes as Giraligula, the Witch of Control, who is also a high official in the Demon King's army. She tells Kilmeria to join her in causing chaos, or else she'll assume she has betrayed the Demon King. Maya interrupts her yapping, making her so angry that she summons a powerful flame magic she uses on her. Maya doesn't take damage from the so-called powerful attack. Instead, she succeeds in angering Kilmeria, who then blasts her into several observation towers with her flare magic. When Maya notices that she's still kicking, she decides to test out a new spell she has been developing on her own. The spell then wraps her in a bright, warm light that makes her lose her will to fight. At the same time, Asahi encounters Gloria and Kuon on his way, so she asks her to put her skill to use and help him locate the core of the slime, which she easily does using her unique skill called Hawkeye. They all begin to chase the core, which happens to be super great at playing tag, and it uses its skill to evade them all around town. They eventually have it cornered, but it simply takes the high ground where they cannot hope to reach it. Asahi then begs Gloria to toss him up as high as possible, which she gladly does, but it isn't nearly high enough to get him to the level where the core is. Fortunately, the water level drops a bit, so he throws a rock at the core using his special throwing skill. The core then changes its location, but Asahi has mastered his rock throwing skill so much that he can now control its trajectory using telekinesis. He eventually manages to destroy the core, which causes the water to return to its normal form. The next day, Asahi is promoted to a Golem-class adventurer for his heroics during the slime situation, and that evening, he throws a party with his new clan members and his friends from the guild.